This happened a few years ago. I was on a long weekend trip with some students for my geology class. I love exploring caves. I'm a 34-year-old teacher, and I enjoy showing others the beauty of nature. The entrance to the cave was stunning. Green plants surrounded it, and a stream bubbled nearby. It all felt so calming. Still, I've never stopped thinking about what happened when we went inside. As we made our way down the path, I felt a sudden chill in the air. My students joked about it being the ghosts of cave explorers. I laughed it off, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I told them it was just the temperature of the cave, trying to convince myself too. As we ventured deeper, I noticed the shadows on the walls. At first, I thought it was the flicker of our headlamps, but when I turned to check, there was nothing there. My students grew quiet, exchanging nervous glances. My heart raced. I wanted to say something reassuring, but the words didn't come. We reached a large chamber filled with fantastic rock formations. I started explaining the geology when one of the students shouted. I whipped around and saw them pointing at a wall. Strange carvings were etched into the stone. They looked odd, something I hadn't seen before. My skin prickled. Cold sweat formed on my back. The room fell silent. I struggled to explain the carvings, but nothing made sense. Then I heard something. At first it sounded like water dripping, but then it turned into a faint whisper. I could not make out the words, but it felt as if the voice came from all around us. I saw the color drain from my students' faces. I thought maybe they felt the same fear I did. I wanted to calm them, but I felt trapped and couldn't find the words. We tried to brush it off and continued our exploration, but unease hung in the air. I didn't mention the carvings again. It felt wrong to bring it up, but I sensed it was still on everyone's mind. We continued, but part of me wondered if we had disturbed something we shouldn't have. After a while, we found ourselves at the exit. I felt relieved to breathe fresh air again. Yet, the mystery haunted me. What were those strange symbols? What was the source of the eerie whisper? A few days later, while grading papers, one of my students asked about the cave. As I spoke, I felt a sudden chill again. It was as if someone was standing behind me. I turned around quickly, but there was nobody there. I shook it off, but doubt lingered. The cave might hold secrets best left alone. These memories never quite left me. I still wonder if we truly understood what we encountered that day. Sometimes I close my eyes and see those strange carvings, the whisper echoing through the walls. It keeps me awake at night. It was a week after our caving trip, and I could still feel the unease lingering. One night, I decided to pull out the photographs I took during the journey.
I thought that maybe seeing the cave's beauty would help dispel some of my fear. As I flipped through the images, I felt a mixture of nostalgia and dread. The chamber with the carvings was oddly captured in bright detail, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was hidden in those pictures. I paused at the photo of the carvings, then leaned in closer. The symbols seemed sharper than I remembered. I squinted, trying to make sense of them. That's when I noticed something bizarre. In one of the corners of the photo, almost ghostly, was what appeared to be an outline of a figure. My breath caught in my throat. I blinked rapidly, hoping I was just seeing things. My phone buzzed, startling me. It was a text from one of my students, Emma. "Do you remember the carvings? I can't stop thinking about them. I feel like someone is watching me." My heart dropped. It seemed I wasn't the only one haunted by the experience. I replied, "I know what you mean. I've been feeling strange too." Then suddenly I remembered something. During our trip, Emma had taken my students' portraits in front of the carvings. I wondered if her camera caught anything odd too. I urged her to check. As the evening wore on, I felt restless. The shadows in my living room seemed to flicker with movement, and I kept glancing over my shoulder. The air felt charged, as if something was lingering just out of sight. I poured myself a glass of water, but my hands shook as I lifted it. Then came the knock. It was a quiet but firm sound. I jumped, my heart racing. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was late, too late for anyone to be visiting. I hesitated, unsure if I should answer. Half of me was terrified to find out who it could be, but the other half felt drawn to the unknown. Gathering my courage, I walked to the door and opened it slightly. No one was there, just the crisp night air. I sighed in relief, but as I started to close the door, something caught my eye. A small piece of paper lay on the ground. I picked it up and unfolded it. Written in hurried scrawls were the same symbols I had seen in the cave. My heart raced again. I scanned the area, but there was no sign of anyone around. A sense of dread settled in. Who had left this, and why? That night, I lay in bed, the paper resting on my bedside table. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever we had disturbed in that cave was beginning to reach out to us. My thoughts raced, filled with questions. Was it a warning? A call? Then, just before I fell asleep, I heard the faint whisper again, a voice that seemed to weave through the walls, growing louder, more insistent. I shot upright, my heart pounding. I knew our encounter was far from over. The next day, I tried to go about my routine as if nothing had happened. I taught my classes, but my mind was still wrapped around the last week. The looks on my students' faces during the caving trip resurfaced now like ghosts. I couldn't shake the impression that something had shifted among us. During lunch, Emma approached me, her face pale. "I checked my photos," she said, her voice shaky. "There's something in them." Heat rushed to my cheeks. "What do you mean?" "There's a figure, like in yours, but it's clearer. You can see its face." The word face sent a shiver down my spine. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my composure. "Can you send it to me?" She nodded, but hesitated. "What if it's something bad?" Her eyes darted to the students around us. "I feel like we should leave it alone." I wanted to argue, but deep down I felt it too. A tightness in my chest told me we were tipping into something we didn't understand. Still, curiosity gnawed at me. Just as I was about to respond, the fire alarm blared. Students jumped out of their seats and chaos erupted in the cafeteria. I ushered everyone outside, my mind racing in the midst of all the noise. Then, through the crowd, I saw it, a flicker of movement near the hallway. I squinted, and for a moment I thought I caught a glimpse of a figure, tall and shadowy, slipping out of view. My heart raced again. Once the drill ended, we filed back inside, but I couldn't shake the strange feeling from earlier. It wasn't until I reached my classroom that I heard it again. A faint whisper, this time briskly circling my desk. I froze. I glanced around, but the room was empty. "Get a grip," I muttered to myself. I decided I needed to investigate further. I started searching for more information about the carvings from our trip. The library in town was small, but I hoped to find details about the cave's history that might help explain everything. After school, I found a dusty old book tucked away at the back of the shelves. It contained references to the cave, along with old articles detailing disappearances near its entrance. My stomach sank. What exactly had we uncovered? Just as I was about to close the book, my phone buzzed. It was Emma again. "You need to see the photo. I'll meet you at the cafe." I felt a surge of anxiety. What if the figure wasn't just in the photos? What if it had somehow followed us? The thought clung to the back of my mind as I made my way to the cafe. I pushed through the door, scanning the room for Emma. That's when I saw it. The same shadowy figure, now standing just behind her, its outline barely perceptible against the cafe wall. My breath hitched, and every instinct screamed at me to run, but I was rooted to the spot, unable to look away. I had to know what would happen next. Emma waved me over. I forced myself to move, my legs feeling heavy. I sat across from her, trying to focus on her face instead of the shadow lurking behind her. "Did you see it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked confused. "See what?" Behind you," I stammered, glancing back. The figure was gone. A chill swept over me, leaving a strange sort of void. Had I imagined it?
I tried to push the thought away. It didn't matter. Emma pulled out her phone and opened the photo app. "I promise you need to look at this." She handed me her phone, and my heart raced again as I tapped the screen. The photo was of an archway inside the cave. In the background, a dark shape hovered near the entrance, details almost hidden in shadow. I squinted, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. It looked like a face, but the eyes seemed wrong, sunken, hollow. "I don't like this," I said, handing the phone back. "What if it's a trick of the light?" Emma shook her head, her face set. "It's not just the photo. Ever since we left the caves, I've been hearing things. At night, sounding like whispers. I thought I was losing it." "What kind of whispers?" A new worry bubbled up inside me. She leaned in closer. "It sounds like my name." A shudder ran through me. Just then, the cafe lights flickered. I glanced toward the window to check the weather. No storms.
The air felt heavy, as if the room itself was holding its breath. "I think we should go to the cave again," Emma suggested suddenly. "What? Why?" I knew the idea was reckless, but a part of me was intrigued, the same part that had gotten us into this mess. "Because we need answers. What we saw is not from here. We don't know what it is, but it feels important." Every instinct warned me against it, yet I nodded, drawn to the lure of the unknown. We began gathering our things. The figure's presence loomed between us, drawing us closer together, even as I felt colder inside. As we headed toward the door, I noticed a small, dark figure reflected in the cafe's window, a flicker of movement that wasn't Emma or me. My heart dropped. It was back, lurking just beyond our view. I turned, scanning the room, but it had vanished. "Did you see that?" I said, my voice shaking. "See what?" Emma asked, her brow furrowed. "Never mind," I mumbled, my legs carrying me outside. I had to get to the cave. I needed to confront whatever this was, whatever we had awoken. The sun was setting, painting the sky with deep oranges and purples. As we walked toward my car, an uneasy feeling settled over me. It felt like we were being watched. We reached the cave entrance just as darkness enveloped us. The shadows danced along the walls, and a whisper cut through the silence. "Help me." Every hair on my body stood on end. I glanced at Emma, and I could see the fear mirrored in her eyes. But we had crossed the threshold now. There was no turning back. I took a deep breath and stepped inside, determined to uncover the truth. Maybe it would answer our questions, or maybe it would lead us to something far worse. I couldn't know yet, but the only way to find out was to venture deeper. The darkness inside the cave was thick, pressing against my body like a heavy cloak. I flicked on my flashlight, the beam slicing through the blackness ahead. The walls glimmered with moisture, and the air smelled earthy, tinged with something ancient.
Emma's footsteps echoed behind me, hesitant yet determined. "Do you really think we'll find anything?" she asked as we moved deeper. "I don't know," I replied, anxiety knotting in my stomach, "but we have to try." With each step, the whispers grew louder, swirling around us like a living thing. "Help me, help me." It wasn't just Emma's name now. It was a chorus of voices, each one a reminder of the unease that churned beneath the surface. I shivered, keeping my focus on the path. We reached the main chamber, a vast open space that teemed with shadows. I aimed the flashlight at the walls, illuminating strange markings etched deep into the stone. A shiver ran down my spine as I tried to decipher their meaning. They looked ancient, too old for our time. "Look at this," Emma breathed, kneeling to touch one of the symbols. It was a figure, arms outstretched as if pleading for something. "What do you think it means?" "Maybe it's a warning," I said, feeling the weight of her gaze. "Or a message." The thought lingered in my mind, wrapping around my thoughts like a vine. Suddenly, the whispers turned into a single voice, loud and clear. "Leave," it commanded, echoing against the stone walls. My heart raced, the flashlight beam shaking as I struggled to process what I had heard. It was not just whispers now. It sounded frantic, desperate. Emma jumped back, her eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" "Yeah," I replied, a sense of dread pooling in my gut. "We should." Before I could finish, a loud crash reverberated through the chamber, rocks tumbling from above. I shielded my face as dust and debris fell around us. Panic surged, and I grabbed Emma's wrist, yanking her to her feet. "We need to get out of here." With our path obstructed by fallen stones, I scanned the room desperately. "There must be another way," I said, my voice barely above a whisper now. I could feel the shadows closing in, the darkness pressing against us. Emma pointed toward a narrow passageway on the far side of the chamber. It was barely visible, but it offered a potential escape. "Over there, let's go." We ran, urgency fueling our movement. The whispers intensified as we approached the narrow opening. You could almost sense them reaching for us. "Help me, help me." I felt an overwhelming compulsion to stop, to listen, but Emma pulled me along. As we slipped into the passage, a chill chased us, wrapping around our bodies like icy fingers. I glanced back just as a dark shape seemed to emerge from the shadows, taking form in the dim light. "Emma, hurry," I urged, urging her faster. I didn't want to find out what it was. We squeezed through the passage, the walls pressing in tight. The sound of the whispering faded behind us, replaced by a low, rumbling growl. It felt close, far too close. That's when I saw it, a glimmer of light ahead. Hope surged in my chest, but dread was never far behind. What awaited us on the other side, and what had we truly unleashed?
The light wasn't just a glimmer. It was a doorway, an escape from the darkness. As we reached it, I hesitated for a beat, glancing over my shoulder. The shadows had pooled behind us, a thick fog that swallowed the air. "Come on," Emma urged, pulling me through the opening. I stumbled into a new chamber that was surprisingly bright. Natural light filtered in from above, creating a stark contrast to the cave's oppressive gloom we had just escaped. I breathed deeply, feeling the fresh air fill my lungs. But the comfort was short-lived. The space we entered was like a graveyard of stone. Crumbling columns lined the edges, and the floor was littered with remnants of ancient artifacts, broken pottery, pieces of bone, rusted tools. It was clear this place had a history long forgotten. "Look at this," Emma said, crouching down to examine a large shattered pot. "What do you think happened here?" "I don't know," I replied, my eyes scanning the room. Something felt off. It looks like there was civilization here once, but something drove them away. As I stepped closer to Emma, I felt the air grow heavy again. The whispers returned, now rising to a fervor, a cacophony of voices. "Help me! Help me!" The urgency in their tone gripped me like ice, sending a chill through my core. "Can you hear that?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Emma looked up, her brows furrowing with worry. "Yes, it's getting louder." "Maybe it's a way out?" I suggested, even as doubt crept in. "We can follow the sound." Just as I spoke, a sudden tremor shook the ground, sending dust cascading from the walls. Emma grabbed my arm, her grip firm. "What was that?" "I don't know, but we should—" The ground shuddered again, this time more violently. Before we could react, part of the stone wall to our left crumbled away. It revealed a hidden alcove, dark and foreboding. I caught a flicker of movement inside, a shadow shifting just out of sight. "Did you see that?" I whispered, tugging Emma closer to me. "I don't want to find out," she replied, her voice trembling. But the whispering grew louder, almost insistent. "Help me, help me." It was calling to us, pulling at something deep within. I took a step toward the alcove, the light from our flashlights flaring against the darkness. "What if someone is trapped?" I said, the words escaping before I could stop them. "Or something else," Emma murmured, her eyes wide. The tremor stopped, but a heavy silence fell. Just as I was about to back away, a pale hand shot out from the darkness, grasping at the air. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. Then everything went dark. The light flared and died, leaving us in pitch blackness. "Emma," I whispered, panic rising. No response. The darkness engulfed us, and the whispers turned to screams. I stumbled backward, colliding with something cold and unyielding. My heart pounded in my chest. "Emma." And then a soft voice whispered, "Help me." Before I could respond, I cursed the darkness that kept me from seeing what awaited us. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself, but the darkness felt suffocating. "Emma," I shouted again, my voice shaking. Nothing. Just the whispering shadows closing in. I fumbled around, desperate to find her. My hands brushed against rough stone, the jagged edges digging into my skin. "Please, say something," I pleaded, hoping beyond hope she could hear me. Then I heard it. Footsteps. The sound of soft shuffling came from my left. My skin prickled with fear. "Emma, is that you?" "No," the voice rasped, low and distant. A chill ran down my spine. I pressed my back against the wall, slowly sliding down to the ground as I fought the urge to scream. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing the darkness to lift. "What do you want?" I managed to say, my voice trembling. "Help me." The voice was unmistakably pleading, but it was not Emma's. I slowly opened my eyes, straining to see something, anything in the void. "Who are you?" I asked, my own fear echoing back at me. Silence hung thick for a moment, and then the whispers returned, swirling around me. The more I listened, the clearer their words became. "Help us," they sighed. "Release us." The stones around me began to tremble again, sending shivers through the ground. The alcove that had collapsed earlier shifted and groaned. I felt like I was caught in a nightmare with no way out. I had to find Emma. If she was trapped, I couldn't just sit here. With a determined push, I got to my feet. I waved my flashlight in front of me, the beam flickering as it tried to pierce the gloom. The light caught the edges of the rubble, reflecting off something shiny amid the chaos. Curiosity momentarily replaced my fear. I took a cautious step toward the glinting object. My heart raced as I bent down to examine it. It was a pendant, tarnished but still elegant. A carved symbol adorned its surface, one that looked familiar yet unsettling. I couldn't quite place it, but something told me this pendant mattered. Then the ground shook again, and I stumbled, dropping the pendant. It rolled away into the darkness, disappearing from sight. "No, wait!" I scrambled after it, but my hands met only empty space. As dread gripped me, I felt the air change. The whispers had shifted from pleading to angry, building in intensity. "Leave! Leave!" I took another step, my instinct screaming at me to run, but the darkness felt alive now. "Emma," I called out, fear and urgency replacing my earlier careful approach. Before I could process what was happening, a surge of cold air blasted through the chamber. My flashlight flickered one last time and then went out, plunging me into absolute darkness. Suddenly, an icy hand clasped my wrist, squeezing tightly. I froze, shock paralyzing me. "Help me," the voice echoed again, now louder and closer.
I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was here, it wasn't just looking for help. It wanted something more, something from us. I felt reality shatter around me, and in that moment, I knew the whispers were not about to set us free. I had to find Emma before the darkness consumed us both. I struggled against the grip around my wrist, my thoughts a chaotic blend of fear and desperation. "Let go of me," I yelled, trying to yank my arm free. The coldness intensified, as though whatever held me was drawing energy from my panic. "Help me," the voice insisted, now strained and desperate. It intertwined with my heartbeat, loud and frantic in my ears. I turned my head, scanning the darkness for any sign of Emma. "Emma, where are you?" I cried out again, my voice trembling. The grip loosened slightly, allowing me a moment of clarity. I felt the walls rocking slightly, the stones shifting and groaning as I fought back the darkness surrounding me. "Please, just tell me where you are," I shouted, hoping against hope that my plea would reach her. The icy touch flared again, firm like a vice. Instead of squeezing harder, it seemed to pull me deeper into the shadows. I stumbled forward, getting drawn into an unseen pathway, the ground beneath me uneven and treacherous. Shadows danced along the walls. They almost seemed to pulse with each whisper. I shook off the panic and focused. "If you're like me, if you're trapped here, just show me the way." I felt stupid as I spoke to the darkness, yet deep down I thought there might be a chance to connect. I closed my eyes and tried to listen, hoping the whispers would guide me to Emma. Then, somewhere in the distance, I heard it, a distinct thump, followed by a low moan. My heart raced as I opened my eyes. "Emma? Is that you?" I called, my voice trembling yet hopeful. "Stay away!" came a voice, but it was muffled and distorted. "Emma!" I shouted urgently, no longer worried about attracting the shadow's wrath. I stumbled toward the sound, trying to navigate through the debris. I traced the walls as I went, my palms grazing the moist, cold surface. Suddenly, out of the darkness in front of me, I caught a glimpse of movement. "Emma!" It was like a flicker, but my hope grew as I saw a figure in the distance, a shifting silhouette against the stone. I pushed forward, adrenaline fueling me. "Wait!" The voice came again, but it didn't sound like Emma anymore. "Please, leave this place." I halted, a chill running through me. Whoever it was hadn't called for help, but for me to turn back. Struggling with fear and confusion, I took a hesitant step closer. The figure started to take shape, emerging from the shadows. It wore tattered clothes and seemed hollow, almost ghastly. Its face was gaunt, darker than the cave itself. "Help me, escape," it whispered again. "No," I shouted, backing away instinctively. The space felt smaller, closing in on me.
What do you want? Where's Emma? A twisted smile spread across the figure's face as it pointed behind me. There, a faint light glimmered in the distance. I turned to look, and my stomach dropped. It was coming from an opening, faint and warm, a promise of safety beyond the suffocating shadows. "Go," the figure urged, its tone now frantic. "Go through the light. It's the only way." "What about Emma?" I breathed, torn between fear and the desperate pull of the shimmering escape. The figure's expression turned dark as it hissed. "They'll keep her. Choose now." With my heart pounding, I darted toward the light, leaving the figure in the suffocating darkness. But as I reached the opening, a horrifying realization struck me. The whispers grew louder, echoing in my mind. "You can't leave. You won't leave." I stopped short, my mind racing. What if I was making the biggest mistake of my life? I hesitated just outside the portal of light, shivering from the chill that seemed to wrap around my heart. The whispers filled my ears, a cacophony of voices layering over each other. "You won't leave." They sounded familiar but distorted, haunting and unyielding. Taking a deep breath, I forced myself to look back. The figure was still there, eyes locked on me, pleading. "They'll keep her," it shouted, desperation etched in its ghostly features. I felt trapped between two haunting realities, one promising safety and the other filled with despair. "Emma," I cried, my voice cracking. I wanted to believe she was waiting for me on the other side, safe from whatever darkness lurked in this cave. But what if that safety was an illusion? The figure's urgency seeped into my gut, feeding my anxiety. "Please," I pleaded. "Where is she?" It didn't answer. Instead, it reached out a skeletal hand, as if it were trying to pull me back into the shadows. My instinct screamed for me to run toward the light, but I couldn't ignore the figure. Something nagged at me, a small voice whispering that it might be telling the truth. Suddenly, more sounds erupted from deep within the cave, a series of loud crashes followed by shrill shrieks. My heart dropped. Fear for Emma swelled within me. I needed to find her, but a part of me wanted to bolt through the glowing exit and never look back. Clenching my fists, I decided in that moment I had to keep searching. I took a step back into the cavern. The light flickered, but I focused on the figure before me. "Tell me how to find her," I demanded. The figure hesitated, then whispered, "You must listen closely. The shadows will pull you away if they sense your fear. Follow the sound of her voice, not the light." "What do you mean?" I stammered, my confidence wearing thin. "Trust your heart," it said, its voice now laced with an edge of urgency I recognized. "They're all around, drawing you in, trying to feed on your fear. If you don't hurry." I didn't need to hear the end of that sentence. I turned, straining to pick up the faint sounds echoing through the cave. A muffled cry broke through the whispers, and I felt a tug in my gut, the familiar sound of Emma's voice. There was no time to waste. I ran, leaving the figure behind, weaving through the maze of rocks, tan bricks, and the cold drip of water. My thoughts churned, tethered between a lifeline of hope for Emma and the ominous warnings of the figure. Shadows raced alongside me, whispering threats in tones that felt all too personal, grazing against my skin as I pushed forward. Suddenly, everything went dark. The warm glow of the opening vanished behind me, and I stumbled, my foot catching on an unseen obstacle. My heart raced as I fell forward, and I hit the hard ground, gasping for breath. Panicking, I scrambled to my feet, bracing myself against the wall. I was utterly alone, wrapped in darkness, and a new silence filled the air. No light, no echoes, just the stillness threatening to swallow me whole. "Emma," I called, dread pooling in my stomach as silence answered back. I blinked, trying to adjust to the darkness, but I saw nothing. And then, in a flat voice that chilled me to the bone, I heard it, a soft, mocking laughter breaking the stillness. Caught in the encompassing darkness, my heart pounded as the mocking laughter echoed around me. The sound coiled around my mind, pulling me into a whirlwind of confusion and despair. "Emma," I shouted again, desperation making my voice tremble. I took cautious steps forward, the ground uneven and treacherous beneath my feet. As that cruel laughter faded into a cacophony of whispers, the atmosphere thickened. Find her, the voices urged, shifting with insidious glee. Leave or lose her. The shadows seemed to stretch further, eager to envelop me, threatening to drag me into their depths. I felt their presence all around me, like claws grazing my skin. Shut up, I snapped back at the darkness, forcing my voice to maintain strength. I had to believe Emma was close. I needed to trust the stirring inside me that screamed she was still out there, waiting. With that flicker of hope, I pressed on. The air grew colder, almost suffocating, and I felt the pull of the shadows trying to lure me into their clutches. I focused on any sound that stood out from the oppressive whispers. Suddenly, I thought I heard it again. Emma's voice, softer now, weak but unmistakable. Help me, please. Yes, she was alive. I sprinted toward the sound, urging my legs to move faster, despite the uncertainty gnawing in my chest, each step fueled by the necessity to find her. As I reached a wider chamber, I paused, breathless and disoriented. Glancing around, I saw movement at the far end, a flicker of light. Emma, I called again, my pulse racing as I followed what felt like a beacon in the darkness. There she was, stumbling out from the shadows, her eyes wide with fear. Relief flooded through me as I rushed forward. Emma, I reached out, grasping her shoulders tightly. Thank God you found me,
she exclaimed, almost crying as she clung to me. I thought I was lost. Let's get out of here, I urged, glancing about with a sense of urgency. The whispers surged around us, their presence sickening and nearby. I couldn't let them drag us back into the abyss. But as we started back toward where I thought the light still lingered, the shadows grew thicker, more aggressive. The whispers morphed into screams, the cacophony overwhelming. "You will not leave," they shouted, each word laced with despair and rage. Suddenly the ground shuddered underfoot, and I stumbled. Emma fell back, gasping. "What's happening?" "No idea, but we need to move," I shouted back. Grabbing her hand, I pulled her after me, but the shadows roared and lashed out, tendrils of darkness snaking around us, threatening to separate us once more. Just when I thought we were caught, I saw it, a faint glimmer off to the side, a faint echo against the crumbling stone. "The light! This way!" I shouted, weaving toward the flicker. With every step, the whispers clawed louder, and the shadows surged closer. "You belong to us," they screamed, cold and possessive. But then I caught a flash of something, a face among the shadows, one that echoed familiarity. In my gut, I knew I had seen it before. "Keep going," Emma urged, her grip tight on my hand, anchoring me in reality. Ahead, the light expanded, brightening as we moved toward it. But the shadows squeezed tighter. The whispers morphed into one shrieking voice, drowning out everything else. "You cannot escape what you have awoken!" We pushed forward, closer to that hope. Emma's strength and presence felt like a lifeline burning through the darkness that sought to smother us. And then, just as I felt my legs weaken, we broke through. I stumbled into the light, and finally we emerged into the open air. Panting and disoriented, Emma and I fell to the ground, the cave now a dark maw behind us. We looked at one another, trembling from what we had seen and heard, emotions churning in the silence around us, the whispers now only a distant memory. But I felt it, an unresolved tension lingering just beneath the surface. I turned to the cave entrance again, shadows lurking at the threshold, pulsing with an unnerving life of their own. "Did we escape?" I murmured, uncertainty lacing my words. "We're out," Emma said, her voice shaking, "but I don't think it's over yet." I nodded, a heady weight settling in my chest. I could still sense the eyes watching us, the haunting whispers that had promised neither of us would truly leave unharmed. We survived the cave, yes, but what else was still lurking in the shadows we had so narrowly avoided? "I don't know what we disturbed in there," I whispered, scanning the cave's dark mouth one last time. "But I can't shake the feeling it's still waiting, and it knows our names." We got to our feet, the reality of the night settling around us like a dark fog. As we walked away from the cave, the moonlight guided our steps, but the sense of unease shadowed us in our wake, leaving questions that may never find answers lingering in the night.